Okay, Donnie and I are now at the side of the Crystal Springs Plant Works, or when we came to Chickamauga in 1958, is known as Crystal Springs Bleachery. Just a little personal history with the mill. My dad was a textile worker. He was born in East Tennessee in Polk County, poor Appalachia in 1911, and he came to what was called Lupton City, Tennessee, I think in the 1930s, and went to work for Dixie Mercerizing. And in 1958, we moved here to Chickamauga, and Dad, of course, we moved here because Dad went to work here at Crystal Springs Bleacher, as they called it at that time, and he was a card room man, and Donnie explain to you more about it. But you're going to have to visualize a lot of this, because most of the cotton mill where they manufacture cloth, as you can see, is being torn down. So I'm going to turn it over to Donnie. He's going to go through the operation from the time that they opened that bale of cotton until they came back with cloth. Donnie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, John. If I missed a few things, kind of back me up.
Back you up.
But over in that area was the cotton mill, and back in the back was the opening room, they called it, where they'd open up bales of cotton and polyester or whatever, and then it would go up into the pickers and be separated, and they could combine it to polycotton or whatever they wanted to. And then it would go upstairs to the card room and be sorted out into rolls, put in cans, put into a smaller bundle, and it would go to the slubbers and be put into a smaller thread. Then it would go upstairs on the third floor to the spinning department and be made into thread. And it eventually worked its way back downstairs to the slasher room, where they added starch to it so it could weave it easier. And then that area was a weave shop. Up in that second floor would have been a weave shop. Then on the first floor on the other side of there would have been a weave shop. And that was basically for pocketing and duck and that type of stuff. And then this was the main office for corporate headquarters, whatever you want to call it. Everything was done here on site, cut their own checks, did everything. Then the area back here was the old bag mill. It was originally the first part of the plant, I believe, John, if I'm correct. And then back in the back is the boiler room, which back in the day furnished heat, processed steam, and everything for the plant. Also in the back was the water department, where they furnished water for the plant, drinking water, processing water, and water for the city at times. And on the other side of that, behind the plant, was a generating room. They generated all the power for the mill village on both sides of the creek, and I believe parts of the town too at that time, didn't they, John?
Yes, until Georgia Power came in town, yes.
Okay. And then later on, they built the finishing department, and over and behind it, you can't see it, but the printing department. And they would bring cloth from all over the country and print it, finish it for hospital gowns, boxer shorts, whatever the customer wanted. And then it would go down to our inspection department, which is that newer part there. It'd be sorted out, the bad taken out, whatever. And then it'd be put on the rolls that the customer could handle and be sent down to shipping, which is a part at the other end down there. And it would go all over the world, or all over the United States, to be cut and sewed into garments.
They actually had an office in what was known as the Garment District in New York, where traders from all over the world came and purchased cloth and so on and so forth. They had salesmen in the office there. And so Donnie's kind of went through the process of taking raw cotton and making it into material. And a couple of things that flash back to me right now is, of course, he mentioned the card room, and the card was a machine that separated the old seeds and all the stuff out of the cotton, just like the old women had the two-hand carders, that would clean the cotton. It cleaned the cotton. And so when we moved here in 1958, like I say, my dad was a textile worker, and we lived in several mill towns starting with Lupton City, Tennessee. Then he got transferred to North Carolina, and we lived in Hope Mills, North Carolina, Bladenboro, North Carolina. Now, Bladenboro was a true mill town, and it paid off with company money. And you had to go back to the company store and spend your company money. So they sort of had you right where they wanted you. And then we lived in Cherryville, North Carolina. And then these little mills would shut down, and then people would be out of work, and the mill at Cherryville shut down. And so happened my step-grandfather had a boat on Chickamauga Lake, and a gentleman named Mr. Moshine had a boat, and he told about Daddy was needing a job. He said, well, come on, tell him to move to Chickamauga. We'll give him a job, and so we moved here in '58. Now, this area right here is what's called the Mill Village, our company houses, and you got them here and back behind the mill, what's called across the lake. That's the lake formed by Crystal Springs. Now, in the early days, when textiles became a main business in the South around the turn of the century. Now, I want you to understand, up till that point in time, our textile industry was in the Northeast, Massachusetts and New England. These companies would actually go into rural parts of the country, just like my dad, and recruit these people to come to work in these mills. So my dad moved into a house that had running water, which he didn't have. Probably had a single light bulb in every room that you had to click on or pull a cord down. Had inside plumbing. Now over in Bladenboro, we didn't have inside plumbing. We had the outhouse, and we had a hand pump on the back porch. Okay, so you come to work here, you live in a company house. They furnish you the water, they furnish you the electricity. They had their own carpenter crew that kept the houses maintained and kept them up. And then, of course, all that was taken out of your check when you got paid on payday for rent, for electricity, for water, and so on. Now, Chickamauga, this operation did not have a company store. You had independent merchants downtown. But what happened to Chickamauga is that it depended on what, Donnie? At its peak, what, 1,300 people worked here?
At one time, there were 1,800 people.
1,800 people worked here, and I worked here in the summer, during summer break, and we had people from scads of people from Sand Mountain that came here.
Alabama, Henniker.
And I even had a friend a gentleman that lived in Polk County where Dad was lived, that rode down here and worked the second, third shift. And I wanted to go see my brother. I'd be over here at 6 o'clock and catch a ride with him, and then he'd bring me back at 10 o'clock of the night when he's coming back to work. The shifts back then was
from 6 to 2. 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. the next morning. A.m., excuse me.
And they'd blow the old whistle at shift change. You could hear that whistle blowing.
Old steam whistle.
Old steam whistle. And I can still remember, and of course a lot of people from Chickamauga, I can still remember Mr. Watson, who always brought his lunch in a little basket.
Straw basket.
And a lot of people would bring their lunch, and they'd bring their tea in a quart mason jar, and I still love to drink tea out of a quart mason jar, okay? And the Watson sisters walking to work, and everybody lived here. A lot of people in the 1950s, I'm sure in the 40s, had cars. So everything, you could buy anything you needed to live on a daily basis in Chickamauga, Georgia.
Yeah.
With the phasing out of this facility, our retail merchants faded out also, because their business came from these 1,500 people that worked here. I remember when we moved to Chickamauga, Georgia, there was probably 10 or 12 grocery stores in this town. Well, you'd go there and you'd charge all week.
Right.
And then you would pay your bill on Friday or on payday.
And they would deliver it to you.
Right, and like Donnie, we were talking, if you owed somebody some money and you didn't come pay them, then they'd come over and have a little talk with Mr. Jewell, and he'd make sure that you got paid. But you could go like down to Crowder's Auto Supply, and I'm going to say you needed an alternator. I'm going back in the 50s. Hey, $20, can I pay you $2 a week? That'll be fine. And then as that began to fade out with credit cards, corporate America moved into Fort Oglethorpe, and the downsizing of the plant here, we saw mom and pop retail Chickamauga just slowly disappear. I tell people we went 5 years that you could not buy a spark plug or a pair of socks in this town. It was all gone. And so this is another historic icon of Walker County, of Chickamauga, of the South. As they say, is gone with the wind. It's slowly going away. But there's a lot of heritage right here. There's a lot of people here that their great-grandfathers, their grandfathers, their fathers, their mothers worked right here in this plant, their brothers and their sisters, and they had a big ladies workforce here too.
Oh, yeah.
Big ladies workforce here. I can still remember, and Donnie can still remember, I can come down through Chickamauga here late at night, and I can still hear them looms clicky-clack, 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 clicky-clack.
Yeah.
And you used to have some old air compressors.
Yeah.
Doom, doom,
In
doom,
the
doom,
basement
doom,
down there.
doom, 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 doom. I can
Right.
still hear them things running as I come through here by night. Of course, I love to hear the steam train come through by night too. So that's all gone. But it's important that we keep this history. This is our history. This is our heritage. And I'll finish up by saying this: if you're originally from the South, you had something to do with cotton. Either your family grew cotton, you either worked in a textile plant, or you worked in a mom and pop retail that depended on the mill workers for your livelihood.